Hi there, this is Bob Yoho again. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In previous episodes, we've been discussing the top 50 Western films of all time. And we've already discussed films 1 through 10. Today we're going to talk about films 11 through 15. If you haven't seen some of these films, I hope you'll check them out. I hope this inspires maybe even some people that are younger to check out some of these films they may not have seen. And maybe look at them through a new light. I also understand that last week I had some audio problems. I apologize for that. I'm trusting that this one will be better. I hope to make these things worth watching for you, and I work hard at it. So anyway, let's get started and not waste any more time. Number 11 on my list of the top 50 greatest westerns of all time was made in 1948 and is a film called Red River. This film was directed by Howard Hawks. John Wayne plays a man named Tom Dunstan, who is going to start a ranch in Texas, close to the Mexico border. On the way there, he meets a wagon train and finds a boy that's been near everyone was killed in the attacks. And this boy's named Matt Garth, who's played by Montgomery Clift, and he adopts him. The film begins pretty much with John Wayne starting a cattle drive of about 10,000 cattle driving north to the market and the railheads. John Wayne plays a much older character in this, but they're driving his herd north. And during the course of the drive, Matt Garth's with him. Tom Dunstan pretty well shows himself to be a tough, tyrannical, authoritarian leader that just really has no patience or expectation of anybody being even somewhat human. And during the course of the drive, this becomes more and more apparent. John Wayne eventually wants to kill some people who stole from him, and Matt Garth won't let him. And this is going on and on for quite a while, and Tom Dunstan has just showed himself to be unbending. And Matt Garth, not really wanting to, he runs off Tom Dunstan and leaves him behind and takes the herd north by himself. Dunstan, angered by this, tells Garth that he will find him someday and he'll look behind him someday and he'll be there and he'll kill him. And that's the premise of the movie Red River. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's a pretty good film. There's been several remakes of it. At least one that I know of that starred James Arness, who played Matt Dillon in Gunsmoke. And it's not a bad remake, but this is a great film. Red River is recognized pretty much as a classic film. It's a film you need to watch a couple times to fully appreciate it, I believe. One time watching through it, I don't think really gives you the depth of this film and what a great film it is, and probably a masterpiece. And I know that term's used a lot, but that fits this film. John Wayne is playing a character who's much older than his actual age in this film, and it's an exceptional film. It's well worth watching. That is number 11. Number 12, and this film was one of the few that's been made recently, and that was I was going to say 1990. I don't guess that's recent. It seems recent to those of us that are old, but Dances with Wolves was made in 1990, starred and directed by Kevin Costner. During this period of time, the Western had pretty well fallen out of favor, unlike the time where I grew up when so many Westerns were on TV, Bonanza, High Chaparral, things such as this. This was a time Westerns had pretty well went off the scene on television and pretty much film. Clint Eastwood directed a film called Pale Rider, and I believe it was about 1985. And that film kind of reestablished a Western on the big screen. This 1990 film by Kevin Costner was kind of different, and it portrayed the Indians in a much better light than maybe some of the films previously, than a lot of the films previously had done. It starred Mary McDonnell. It starred Graham Greene, who played an Indian in this. And Graham Greene was just a fantastic actor. And he just passed away here in this past September. And Graham Greene was great in this. But it was a fantastic film, well worth your time. But Kevin Costner is a Union soldier named John J. Dunbar, and during the course of the Civil War, he becomes wounded in the leg, and they're going to amputate his leg. And he doesn't want that. He doesn't want to lose his leg. He'd rather die than lose it. So he goes out and just pretty much steals a horse and rides it back and forth in front of the enemy, hoping they'll shoot him and put him out of his misery and he won't have to lose his leg. Well, as it turns out, nobody hits him, and Union forces rally and win this battle. And as a reward for it, his commanding officer gives him his finest surgeon, and then they save Dunbar's leg, and he's awarded for his valor in this, which was pretty much a suicide attempt. And he's given his choice of any post that he wants, and he chooses the farthest out west post that he can find, because he wants to see the frontier before it disappears. And John Dunbar goes out there, and he's assigned a post called Fort Sedgwick, and he starts there, and he's by himself. A wolf shows up, and he plays with him, kind of befriends him. The Indians, and he's playing around, and they call him Dances with Wolves. And this is just a great film. It portrayed the Indians in a much different way than you've seen in many of today's films, and it was sympathetic towards them and what they wanted, and it's just unusual. We didn't see it a lot, and this was one of the first films of its time that really did this, and it was kind of a landmark film in that sense. It ran, I think, at least 3 hours, which was long for a film, but it won Academy Awards, and it was just outstanding, and it pretty well established Kevin Costner as the star that he's become today. And so the timing of it, the actual film itself being so well done, all that put together just puts Dances with Wolves right in the top 50 of my westerns and makes it number 12. Number 13, and that is a film from 1960 called The Magnificent Seven. The Magnificent Seven was pretty well a film stolen from a 1954 Japanese film called The Seven Samurai. And it was kind of a Western version of an old Japanese film about samurai soldiers. This film starred Yul Brynner as Chris Evans, Steve McQueen as Van Tanner, Charles Bronson, Robert Vaughn, James Colburn. Eli Wallach was the bandit leader named Calvera. And this film was just an outstanding film. A bunch of poor Mexican dirt farmers were threatened and intimidated by a bunch of bandits led by Eli Wallach's character, Calvera. And they wanted to provide them with food, and they wanted to steal food and provisions, wanted to steal from these poor Mexicans. Finally, they had enough of it, and they decided to go hire somebody, try to get someone to help fight for them. They wound up contacting a man named Chris Evans, who was a gunman, a very good gunman. Along the way, he acquires 6 other people to join him, starting with Van Tanner, who they actually bury a man, take a man to a cemetery, which is a great scene. They didn't want this man to be buried in the cemetery with everybody else, and nobody wanted to run the body up there. Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen, playing Chris Evans and Van Tanner, get up on the wagon that's carrying the body there, and they take it right up to the cemetery when nobody thought that anybody could do that without being killed, and they proved it could be done. And along the way, they pick up 5 others, and they go to this Mexican village to defend these people from these Mexican bandits led by Eli Wallach. It's a great film, a great premise for a film. Of course, it's stolen from a Japanese, but it's just an outstanding film for its time. The musical score, which is pretty well done, won an Academy Award that year, and it was named by the American Film Institute as the top 25 American film scores of all time. So there's just a lot about this film that makes it worth remembering. And the truth is, and a lot of people don't know this film was not real well received at the time. It didn't do well, and didn't make a lot of money. It actually came along and people developed a taste for it over time, and now listed as a classic. But the truth is, the film wasn't that well received when it was made, and so this film has just grown over time. And that's why it became number 13 on my top 50. Number 14, and I mentioned him before. Number 14 is called The Far Country. This film, I've said it before on here, there is nobody that does angry and bitter and vengeful better than James Stewart. Jimmy Stewart is just an exceptional actor. He in this film stars Jimmy Stewart and John McIntyre, Walter Brennan, and there's Walter Brennan again. And he's in so many of these films. A lot of people probably laugh at Walter Brennan as an actor. I think he's outstanding, and I think when he's serious, he's brilliant. And I think comedy, he does that equally as well. But Walter Brennan is in so many of these films. The man I think made it every film he was in that much better. But he's just great at picking roles. And of course Walter Brennan's in there, Ruth Roman. Jimmy Stewart's character is a man named Jeff Webster, and his buddy Walter Brennan, Ben Gannon, they decide to drive a bunch of cattle north into the gold mine country of the Yukon. And they drive these cattle to Dawson City. And during the course of this, bringing the cattle into town, and they know they'll make them some money because cattle up there, miners need something to eat too. And so beef up there would sell at a premium price. So it sounds like the kind of thing I would try to get involved in, try to make some money off a thing driving some cattle into Dawson. But anyway, in the process of driving these cattle down the street, he interrupts a hanging. And the sheriff, a man named Judge Gannon, played by John McIntyre, who plays his part brilliantly with kind of a combination of kind of comedy and just downright scary fear. And John McIntyre is a brilliant actor in this, and probably one of his better roles of all time, I think. He's equally parts friendly and intimidating at the same time. But this is just an outstanding film. The punishment for Jeff Webster, Judge Gannon is going to pretty much take these cattle away from him. Well, you don't take stuff away from Jimmy Stewart in a Western film and him not respond badly to it. So he runs the cattle out of town, and they go up there and inspect for gold. The problem is, to get back home, they have to come back through Gannon's town, and everybody knows that. And that sets up the drama in this film. But it's an outstanding film, very well done. There was some great acting in this. And also, I don't feel like I can go by this without mentioning, there's a horse in this film that Jimmy Stewart loved very much called Pie. And this horse was in 17 different westerns. And during the course of this film, there's a scene where the horse has to walk down the middle of the street with nobody on it. Jimmy Stewart just went up and kind of whispered in his horse's ear, old Pie, and the horse played the scene brilliantly. Walked right down the street, met his marks to be in front of the cameras, and just did it brilliantly. And Jimmy Stewart loved this horse, and I saw him years ago on the Johnny Carson show talking about how much he loved this horse. And I ain't sure he may even acquired it at some point. But Jimmy Stewart loved Pie, and this horse acted brilliantly in there. And there's a nice scene right there with him in it. And so that's something you don't want to miss. But The Far Country is just an exceptional film, outstanding. And it's something you ought to see. I pretty much, there's probably not a James Stewart film where he's a Western actor that I don't enjoy. Almost every one of them would be a film special because Jimmy Stewart was just, he was a magnificent actor, and I loved him in just about everything, and I especially loved him when he was angry, vindictive, and crazed. I thought nobody plays that part better than Jimmy Stewart, who seems like one of the nicest guys there ever was. And anyway, The Far Country, it made number 14 in my list. Number 15 is number 15th is a film from 1962 called The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. And once more, it's another John Wayne film. It starred him, it starred Jimmy Stewart again, Vera Miles, Lee Marvin, Lee Van Cleef, who's one of the best bad guys, and he was actually in the Good, the Bad, and Ugly. And there's Strother Martin, Woody Strode again, who also starred in Once Upon a Time in the West, Edmund O'Brien, Andy Devine, John Carradine again, who we mentioned in Stagecoach. There are so many great actors in this film. It's just this ensemble was just, I don't even know how you'd pay for it today. It would just, I don't know how you could come up with a budget to pay all these exceptional actors. But this film, Jimmy Stewart is sort of the begins and pretty well ends this film. But he's a politician who's coming home on the train, him and his wife. And he's known as the man who shot Liberty Valance, which was Lee Marvin's character years ago. And Lee Marvin was the town bully, and he had a couple of henchmen that ran around with him all the time. And he's always threatening people and intimidating them and beating them up, and everyone in town hates him. Most people fear him. And the only guy in town pretty much that doesn't fear him is pretty much Jimmy Stewart's character and John Wayne, who plays a man named Tom Donovan, who pretty well backs Liberty Valance down with a gun. And then later in one of the critical scenes, Liberty Valance forces Ransom Stoddard, who's a lawyer, to meet him out in the street with a gun. Ransom Stoddard knows that he's no match for Liberty Valance with a gun, but he goes out and meets him anyway. And he shoots Liberty Valance. And as a result of that shooting, Ransom Stoddard becomes famous. He's offered up as a name for a politician in this territory, which is about to gain statehood. And he becomes a great politician, goes to Washington, who's a senator and an ambassador, a congressman. And he does all this, and he's returning home on the train. And they want to talk to him about how he shot Liberty Valance. And on the way, and in the course of this interview with these reporters, Ransom Stoddard tells them the actual story of what truly happened with Liberty Valance. And they hear the whole story, which is different than how everybody believes it happened. And he tells the story down to them at the end. And this film has one of the greatest lines in it of any film that was ever made. And it's really spoken by somebody who's a really kind of small character in this film. But when Ransom Stoddard, the politician, tells them about how the shooting of Liberty Valance really occurred and what happened there, the man takes his notes that he's taken from his interview, wads them up, throws them in the stove, and Ransom Stoddard asks him, "You're not gonna print this?" And he says, the reporter responds, "This is the West, sir. When the legend becomes fact, print the legend." And you will hear the versions of this statement made almost everywhere, and a lot of times it's become a saying that's quite often misquoted from the film. There's just so many layers of suspense and drama in this film. It makes it exceptional. And that's why I believe that The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is my number 15 on my top 50 greatest Western films of all time. And I'll go over them once again. Number 11, Red River from 1948. Number 12, Dances with Wolves from 1990. Number 13, The Magnificent Seven from 1960. Number 14, The Far Country from 1954. And number 15, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance from 1962. That is my top 15 out of my top 50. If you've enjoyed this and liked this, I hope you hit like and subscribe, and you come back next week. We'll visit again the next 5 films on my greatest 50 westerns of all time. If you have a favorite or something, you might want to stay tuned, because I may get to it in the weeks to come. Thank you very much. Thanks for stopping in. Catch you again soon. Bye now.